Welcome to the Parenting with Impact podcast with your hosts Elaine, Taylor-Klaus, and Diane, Dempster, co-creators of ImpactParents.com, an online community, award-winning blog, and service organization helping parents all over the world to raise complex kids become capable, independent adults.
Hi everyone, Elaine and Diane here, and we know that you want your complex kids to grow up to be happy and independent, and yet you're not always sure how or when to help with that.
In this podcast, we'll encourage you to collaborate with all kinds of complex kids and support them in navigating life and learning.
And we'll interview leading experts from around the world, as well as parents in our own community, talking about how training for parents actually helps these complex kids.
We'll talk about the issues we hear parents struggling with all the time and how a coach approach can support and empower your amazing young people.
We won't tell you what to do. We're going to help you figure out how. So let's move on to the next conversation. Welcome back, everybody, to another conversation in the Parenting with Impact podcast. I'm here today with my dear friend and colleague and mentor and compatriot in all things navigating the world of ADHD, John Willson, who many of you know is the executive director of SOAR. I've known John for a lot of years. We had the privilege of working together on the CHAD board back probably a decade ago. And so we've had a long and lovely opportunity to work and share this world together. And so, John, it's a pleasure to have you as always.
Well, it's great to be here. And in the meantime, during all those opportunities to work together, we've become great friends. I appreciate you so much in the work you're doing, and Diane. And so it always brightens my day when I get a chance to see you.
I feel the same way. It's always good. And it makes conferences all the better as well. Okay, so we're going to talk about the world of navigating, enjoying, loving, supporting, empowering complex kids, which is what you and I spend all of our day, almost every day doing when you're not out on a water rafting or kayaking or something. How did you get to be doing this work? What got you here?
So, yeah, in the early 90s, 1991, in fact, I got a brochure in the mail that a friend of my mom sent me, and it was from SOAR, and it had it had just a couple pictures, and it was a big topographical map, and it was all the fun things that I was looking for in a career. I was actually at the University of Colorado getting a master's degree in experiential education and outdoor programming, and it looked just fascinating. And so I called Jonathan, and who was our founder, and just fell in love with the idea of what we do here. And I came for a summer. I had been a camp director before, and I came here as a field instructor. And then about halfway through the season, he said, "Hey, listen, I've got to take a group to Colorado. I want you to take over this portion of the program." I'm like, okay. And the next summer I came back, and when I graduated, when I finally finished my master's degree in outdoor therapeutic recreation administration from Aurora University, Jonathan reached out and said, "What if I carve off a piece of it and it's yours?" And so he wrote a grant, and I hiked the Appalachian Trail with a group of students many years ago in '93, and have been here ever since. I took over as executive director upon his retirement about 10, 11 years ago. And it has been an extraordinary journey. But I'm an adult with ADHD. We serve kids with ADHD. I am passionate about being in the outdoors. The SOAR is an outdoor-based program. All of the recreational sports I enjoy require the use of a helmet. And so adventure is my middle name. And it just has been a really good fit. And many folks in this industry, I was really good with the kids. And so my passion for it led to nurturing other adults as they became individuals who mentored kids. One quick funny story, when I told my dad what I was doing that first summer, he was gleeful that I was going to have to endure kids like myself. And, "Oh, you're getting your comeuppance now. Oh boy." And then I told him all the things I was learning and the strategies I was using. And he was both happy and really frustrated at the same time because, it was working. And I was able to reach kids and I could understand what they were going through. And it was a very powerful summer. And in fact, I would say that there was my life before the day I drove up the road to SOAR and my life after.
Wow, that's a powerful demarcation. And I'm hearing your story and I'm laughing at, I remember saying to my mother-in-law once, she was like, when she was wishing on my husband to have kids much like him, I was like, what did I do exactly?
Why?
How did I get into the middle of this? But there is something powerful. And the other thing I'll share with everybody is that we had this beautiful opportunity. My middle child actually worked for John one summer at SOAR. And so I got the privilege of watching her go through his training. And the faculty at this camp, and I'm going to use the word faculty, this is not your everyday run-of-the-mill camp counselor, right? Most of your faculty are teachers, I believe.
Yeah, we have teachers, we have folks who graduated, and it is rare that we have a 19-year-old kid who's a summer camp counselor. It's a pretty intense experience, and we have really quality, dedicated people coming every summer to help.
Yeah, and that was really my experience. And I think it made an exception for my child in some ways because you knew me well enough and she is so amazing. Let's be honest.
And she's exceptional.
She is in so many ways. But I can tell you guys that the training, part of the reason I think John and I have really done so well and collaborated so well is because it is foundationally a coach approach. What they do at SOAR, it was so in synergy with, as I watched what Sydney was learning, it was what she had witnessed with me growing up, and then she was learning to implement it. It was this really nice flow. Right. So it's very much in alignment with what we teach in terms of the coach approach and a really empowerment-based approach. You get to do it outdoors in beautiful places. And so let's talk a little bit about, sometimes it's residential in a camp or a school, and then sometimes it's out in an adventure. So talk about what's important about those two different
environments. What we found, and SOAR basically is a program that said, hey, we want to work with kids that have learning disabilities and ADHD. All right. Now, what's going to be the best way to do that? And then so we started looking for ways to best serve these kids. And what we learned is that most of these young people are kinesthetic and tactile in nature, and they are experiential learners. And there is no greater experiential kinesthetic learning environment than the outdoors. And these kids notice everything. And by creating environments in the outdoors, following very loosely, the concept of outward bound established by Kurt Hahn, with a twist of making sure that we weren't just pushing kids to their limits, but instead we were pushing kids to their achievable limits and creating opportunities for them to have success, because success was the thing that for many of these young people were eluding them. And success breeds success. And so by creating opportunities where these kids were doing these extraordinary things in the outdoors and having these sort of mountaintop, clifftop experiences, and then we found that we could translate those lessons, those learnings, those opportunities back to a home environment through what we call the metaphoric transfer of learning by using metaphors. I'll give you a quick example. You're rock climbing, and what does a rope represent? It represents the trust relationship you have with the people who are keeping you safe. Who are those people at home? Are there things are there words that we can use to communicate when we need a little bit of room to maneuver, or maybe we're going to try something out of our element. We need more support. And those words on the rock site, and what are the words you use when you're at home? And those metaphors just naturally flow into these life lessons that kids have that allow them to develop and maintain those coping mechanisms that help nurture success for them in their real home and school environments.
Yeah. And in some ways, what I'm hearing from that is that the kids learn that at camp, and then they go home and almost become the teachers.
Another sort of remarkable way that we help manifest that, Elaine, is that we don't send home an evaluation. We send home an achievement report. And the achievement report is the highlights, the things that your son or daughter did really well, the accomplishments that they had, along with We created, I think, 120 different strategies, and the instructors pick 7 to 10 of their favorites that would really apply to your son or daughter. And so we send you home with a template for these are the incredible things your kids did, and here are some strategies that you can continue to nurture those strengths and abilities.
Yeah. So hang on a second. We're going to take a quick break and then we'll be right back. Hi, it's Elaine. And if you like this podcast, you'll love our coach approach. Whether you're a parent looking for support or a professional supporting families, we invite you to download a free guide with 12 key coaching tools at impactparents.com/gift. You can begin using a coach approach to help kids become more independent or improve all of your conversations at work and at home. That's impactparents.com/gift. Welcome back, everybody. My guest is John Willson, also known as Big John to those who know and love him well, especially in a camp environment. And we are talking about really the benefit to complex kids with ADHD and learning disabilities. And I'm assuming sometimes kids on the spectrum, what some people might call high functioning, in using a life learning experience of camping and being in the outdoors to really learn how to manage other aspects of their lives, right?
Yeah, and I would say that one of the things that I'm seeing more of than I did when I first started in this industry is anxious kids.
Yeah.
Kids are more anxious today. And some parents are anxious about the anxiousness of their kids. And I often say, when you have a chance, whether you're doing it through a program like SOAR or you're stepping out of your own comfort zone and taking your kids outside and doing something, that whenever you create an opportunity that a young person can work through some of those anxious moments and find success on the back end of that, that is the only way that we nurture the ability to overcome those anxious feelings. You cannot just one day manifest that your anxiousness be gone. You have to work towards being able to break through and overcome obstacles that allow you the belief that you're going to be successful and that you can do this. It's an extraordinary thing to watch somebody go from anxious and a disbelief that they have abilities to this idea of I did, nothing can stop me now.
Yeah. One of the things we talk to parents a lot about is this notion of holding a vision for our kids when they struggle to hold the vision for themselves, and to see what's possible for them and to acknowledge that you may not see it as possible yet, but I see it for you and I'm going to hold it for you till you're ready. And that's what I'm hearing here, is that you're really holding this extraordinary vision for their capacity. And I love the language you use, pushing them to their achievable limits. And that's not saying lower the expectations. That's saying meet them where they are, what they're really capable of, but helping them push to that full extent of what they're capable of. Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
Absolutely. The gift of self-determination, the gift of self-belief, the gift of believing you can overcome, and then being able to draw on those experiences that you can then, when you're faced with other conditions that seem beyond comprehension, and you draw back on experiences that you've had that you were able to overcome. I mean, as a leader, I've been doing this now for over 35 years. And sometimes when I'm presented with really difficult crises, I draw on the fact that I've overcome many, many situations that were difficult. And those are the kinds of opportunities in a safe and facilitated way, programs like SOAR can create for kids. And the only way you learn is by trying, by doing, by overcoming. And one of my favorite quotes that a kid once said here, they said, your comfort zone is a nice, warm, safe place, but nothing grows there.
Interesting. It's barren. So what came up for me as I was hearing you talk about that is like this notion of self-determination and the gift of self-belief, right? And I believe in that so powerfully. And I believe that kids need their parents and the adults in their lives to see that for them. And I actually have had the beautiful benefit of a 20-something-year-old kid of mine coming to me and saying, thank you for holding that vision because I couldn't see it, right? It really does make a difference. I'm curious if you can talk about how do kids, about that process of transferring it from the physical to the psychosocial emotional. Like, how does a kid translate from I climbed that mountain to I can write that paper, or I can regulate the emotions when I'm really upset?
Okay, when you put a group of 8 kids with learning disabilities and ADHD together in a group, you're going to have some turmoil. And through that turmoil, they're going to have a chance to work together to overcome some of those challenges. And one of the things that we'll do is we'll process that. Now, I'm going to give you, I talked about the metaphoric transfer of learning. I'm going to give you an example. Sometimes when I take a group rafting, I will purposely get stuck on a rock. And sometimes that can be a panicky situation for kids. The water's flowing all around us and we're stuck on this rock. And so sometimes I'll say, okay, relax, hold on, we're fine, but we have to figure out how to work together to get off this rock. And so people start throwing out different ideas and we brainstorm, and eventually by doing a mix of all of those things, we'll eventually peel off the rock and there we go. And I'll catch an eddy on the side of the river and I'll say, do we ever get stuck on rocks at home? What are some of those rocks? Some of those emotional challenges that we discover? And kids will share what some of those are. And I'll say, and what kinds of things do we do sometimes as a family unit when we get stuck on those rocks? Do we do what we did, problem solve, take stock of what our situation was, riff off each other's ideas, or do we bicker, fuss, and yell and scream at each other? And that aha moment comes on. And does bickering, if while we were on that rock, we all yelled at each other and blamed everybody and blamed me, would that have gotten us off the rock? No, Big John. What did we do? We worked together. We problem solved. We talked to each other. We listened to each other. Do you think just maybe that might work to help get you unstuck off of some of the rocks that you find yourself, that you all mentioned earlier? And the light bulb goes off. Now, social relationships are a little more intriguing because what we do with social relationships is our staff to student ratio is 1 to 3, 1 to 4. And so it gives us the opportunity to pull alongside and nurture a conversation, say, hey, what went right? What didn't go right? What could we do differently? What do you think they were saying? What is it you were trying to communicate? What if you used I statements instead of you statements? And so just having some of those conversations and then getting a chance to practice those in the moment can be a really powerful way to help nurture those things. The other thing, though, that I think is really important is that in the real world, unfortunately, you don't have adults that are making sure that they are facilitating a safe experience for kids to grow into each other. And sometimes they'll just let kids bicker and fuss and gripe at each other, and then it just becomes a circle of dysfunction.
Well, or sometimes
one of the things,
they don't know what to do.
yeah,
Sometimes you got adults who just don't know how to handle it, right?
Right. And they can be exhausting, right? I don't want to deal with this right now. But because we are creating so much energy and time in culture building and we do something called a full value contract where we're valuing each other, where we develop as a group what the rules are going to be, the expectations that we have of each other. And then perhaps one of the most important things we do is one of our rules is that if you put somebody down, first avoid doing that. But if you do, you owe them 3 put-ups. And that put-up is a nice thing that you're going to say about somebody. Now, the way that I manifested that in my real life, Elaine, with my kids, is we played every day on the ride to school. We played the My Favorite Thing About You game. And so when we spend time really actively celebrating each other and talking about things we appreciate about each other, we change the conversation in a remarkable way. But you have to do that consistently and you have to mean it. And sometimes our kids will fall into the 3 put-ups and they'll say, you're nice, you're cool, you're funny. Now, my son is working here this summer for the first time, and he stopped a group and he said, you owe that young man 3 put-ups. And the kid said, you're nice, you're cool, you're funny. And I'm so proud. Jay said, what's nice about him? Why do you think he's cool? Tell me something funny he said. And really made the kid dig a little bit. And then he said to me, I guess I picked some of that stuff up. I am your son after all.
My son called me from camp. He was working at a different camp one summer as a counselor, and I remember him calling and saying, Mom, you're coming out of my mouth.
And I want to remind parents that as challenging as it is sometimes, your kids are watching and you've taken the best of your parents and incorporated that into yourselves. We do that naturally. And so there's hope.
Absolutely. There is so much hope, and sense of humor doesn't hurt much either. My son will also call and say, don't tell Mom, but, and then he'll tell me something lovely that I'm not supposed to know because he actually used a list or whatever it was. Okay, so we need to start wrapping this conversation, much as I could hang out with you all night. How can people find out more about you and about SOAR?
Well, you can find SOAR at soarnc.org. That's SOARNC.org. And we've got lots of webinars and podcasts on the website that are free and available to you. You can see all the different programs that we operate. We have a summer adventure program. We do a residential boarding school. We have a gap year program for young men that have graduated and women that have graduated from high school or are 18 and older. We have a Christmas in the Florida Keys course just after Christmas. We break the new year in down in the beautiful Florida Keys. And so, yeah, you just go on our website, soarnc.org, and take a look. There's lots of great information there.
Super. And it's definitely in the show notes. And I think you'll probably even find maybe some webinars and podcasts with Diane and me on.
That's right.
Over the years.
We do collaborate.
We do have a tendency to do that. Excellent. So I want to give you a chance to complete the conversations. Is there something we talked about that you want to highlight, or something we haven't talked about? You just mentioned, and I want to reiterate that there's a wide range of services, and this is not, John's not here to do an advertisement for SOAR. We've done a lot of collaboration over the years to help parents understand what are some of the programming kinds of things that really support this audience of kids. And so part of what SOAR reflects, whether you go to SOAR or you go someplace else, is going to a camp where the staff is educated to support kids with ADHD and related issues. Adventure programs, gap year programs. You happen to have a residential boarding school that I've visited. It's so lovely. It feels like you're in a little red schoolhouse in the woods. But what's really important when you've got a kid with ADHD and related issues is making sure that you find a place that can really support the psychosocial emotional needs of that kid and the executive function needs of developing that kid. And that's one of the things I think so important is it's not just any camp, right? It's finding the places where people are really well educated to understand how to support complex kids and help them reach that potential. That's maybe my little.
Thank you, Elaine. Diane isn't with us. I wish she was.
Yeah.
What I would say is that what is our unique differentiator is that we start with kids that are 8 and we have programming all the way through 24. And I just don't know a whole lot of other programs that are doing that.
No. So as I talk about all those different various kinds of programming and making sure that whatever the programming is, people are well educated. What else would you add to that? What am I missing? It's important for parents to understand when they're looking for support for their kids. And I love 8 to 24.
Yeah. And I'll share this with you, regardless whether it's SOAR or anybody else. But what you're looking for is you're looking for folks that can understand your child, be really open, honest, and very, very candid about your child's strengths, abilities, and their challenges, and get a sense of what their philosophy is regarding managing impulsivity, managing behavior, managing medications. How are they going to find ways to celebrate and bring out the best in your kid? And how are they going to help your child overcome some of the obstacles? One of my personal philosophies is, and I love Ross Green's work in collaborative parenting. And one of the things that he says is, all of us want to do better if we can. And so we just have to help find ways to remove the barriers to success for kids and then give them those opportunities that they can excel. And as parents, maybe the best advice I can give is keep trying different stuff. You don't know what's going to work. Something's going to work. And you're like, oh, I've got it figured out. And then that thing will stop working. And then you've got to come up with a new thing. And you absolutely never know.
No, you really don't. And they're likely to get something that really works and then maybe get bored with it or get tired of it or need a different kind of novelty or something new. And that's part of their learning process. Sometimes
Absolutely.
once they've got something, they're ready to learn something else. They may not know that consciously, but on another level, their experimentation is part of their development.
It's true.
So anything else before we call this one a
Yeah,
wrap?
you mentioned you were going to ask me what my
I
favorite
will.
quote is.
I will. I
and
just wanted to make sure you didn't have anything else first.
No, I've been thinking, what is my favorite quote? And I'm going to give you two. All
Okay.
right. Isaac Asimov, who wrote Sci-Fi Writer, wrote a quote that I just love. And he said, most of humanity's great discoveries were not heralded with the words Eureka, but instead, that's funny. And I love that because I want folks to just, you never know what's going to work. And sometimes I can't believe that worked. And, keep trying new things. And the other one came from a young woman who worked for me years ago. And she looked at me and she said, Big John, if you can't convince them, confuse them. And someone said, what does that mean? And then I said, here, I'll show you. And I called the kid over. I said, hey, Robert, come here. Hey, remember that time we were walking down the street and there was that guy and he had the monkey with the Snicker bar? You were there, right? And everyone was dancing. And the kid just looked at me like I had lost my mind. And he'd been misbehaving. And then he was done misbehaving. He was just too confused about the conversation and it totally redirected him. So if you can't convince them, confuse them.
I love that. I think I might use that with my husband. Is that okay? All right, folks. John, thank you for the unbelievably beautiful work that you bring to hundreds, thousands of kids over the years, and to the staff who gets to work with you in this environment and learn how to be with these kids in such a profoundly empowering way. It's beautiful work. And I'm very privileged that I've gotten to be there and see it firsthand. And I've had a lot of clients who've gone over the years. So thank you for that work. And
the feeling is absolutely mutual, Elaine. I appreciate you and Diane and your husband and all of you. I really, really love the opportunity to interact with all of you. You're doing very important work. And I love your message because it's so on point with my message.
Exactly. Enough about me. What do you think about me? All right, folks. I want to ask you guys who are listening to take a minute and think about what you heard in this conversation that John and I were having. What are the insights you're taking away? What are those moments, those gems, those awareness? And how do you want to bring that forward with you into your parenting this week or to your work this week? What do you want to do with these insights and how do you want to apply them? And as always, thank you for what you're doing for yourself and for your kids. You, at the end of the day, make an enormous difference. Take care, everybody.
You've been listening to the Parenting with Impact podcast with Elaine and Diane. For more information on the Impact Parents community or to join Sanity School for Parents, please visit impactparents.com. If you like what you've heard, please share this podcast with friends who need similar guidance and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. For the essentials of Elaine and Diane's coach approach to parenting, download a free tip sheet at impactparents.com/podcast.
Behavior therapy training for parents is actually recommended as a first-line treatment for complex kids. For information about Sanity School, our training program for parents or teachers, which has helped thousands of families around the globe, visit impactparents.com/sanityschool.